plan for the past 20 years, so my entire time with Empower. And we are happy today to bring to you the CERF Retirement Seminar. So just a couple of housekeeping items. Lines have been muted just to keep the background noise to a minimum, but we still want to entertain questions throughout the presentations. So on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a little comic strip or a chat bubble. If you could please put your questions there, and we would be happy to answer any questions as we go through the presentations. So today you're going to hear from first Nancy Griffin, who is the lead benefits specialist and project consultant for CERF. And Nancy is going to start off by talking about your CERF pension. And then we will move to Robert Eastburn, who is the lead retirement plan advisor from Empower. So he's the guy that you see in your county probably frequently. And Robert is going to talk about a lot of other aspects of retirement, including your CERF 457 and 401A plans. So with that, I noticed that we've got the CERF Pension Retirement Seminar set up, so I'm going to turn it over to Nancy Griffin.
Thank you, Connie.
Thanks, Nancy.
I will start out with a little bit additional information about CERF. CERF was actually created in 1994 to ensure that all county employees in Missouri had a pension. Some counties have loggers, but not all. So CERF was created to ensure that every county employee would have the benefit of having a pension. So with CERF, vesting is 8 years with the county, and it's 8 consecutive years of 1,000 hours or more. CERF considers 1,000 hours full-time. Full pension benefits start at age 62. You can retire early as young as 55 at an actuarial reduced rate. Loggers participants contribute less, so therefore they receive 2/3 of the benefit because they contribute 2/3 into the plan. There is no lump sum payment per state law. Payments are deposited on the first working day of every month. And once you receive your first payment, the co-annuitant cannot be changed. Effective in January of 2023, the required minimum distribution is required April 1st of the year after you turn 73 for individuals who attain 72 after December 31st of 2022. For those individuals who attain 74 after December 31st of 2032, the applicable RMD age will be 75. That just means if once you stop working, if you are 72, you will begin receiving your payment on April the 15th of the following year. For those people who term and leave, we will try to contact you when you're 62, which is your full pension benefit age. It doesn't benefit you to wait after age 62 if you're no longer working for a county, because your pension will not grow, your benefit amount will not grow after age 62. So we do try to contact you at 62 and again at 71 if we haven't heard from you. But you have to begin at age 73. CERF computes 3 formulas for each retiree. There is a When You Retire brochure on our website that explains these in detail. And it uses the one that yields the highest benefit. And that is typically the targeted replacement ratio formula. And again, those explanations and details are on our website, or you can probably ask your clerk's office for a When You Retire brochure. They may have those. The formulas take into account the years of creditable service up to 29. It is capped at 29. And the average of the 2 highest years of salary. And it doesn't matter when those occurred. It could have been 10 years ago, or it could have been last year. Annual statements include a benefit projection. These are always mailed in April. You can run a benefit projection for yourself through the member self-service portal. You will need your member ID, and if you don't have that, you can call in to CERF and we will happily give you your member ID. And if you don't want to log in or you don't have access, you can always call and we can mail or email a benefit projection to you. The necessary forms have to be completed 30 to 90 days from your commencement date. Your commencement date is always the first day of the month following your term date. So if you leave December 15th, your commencement date would be January 1st, and the forms would need to be completed by October the 3rd or later. They can't be any more than 90 or less than 30. You always want to make sure you get them in on time. You don't want to miss a pension payment by not having your forms signed and dated. Sometimes it takes 2 months to receive your first pension benefit. That typically is for those counties that pay monthly, and you would happen to get a payroll additional, like vacation paid out in the next month. So every once in a while, it takes 2 months. Most of the time, you'll always get a retro payment unless you happen to leave the first few days of the month and your county pays either weekly or biweekly. You do receive retroactive payments to the commencement date. You don't lose those payments. They're just paid retroactively. We do not do an estimated payment, so that's why we make the payments retroactive. If you do not receive forms from the county with the 2V, a packet will be mailed. If you've already retired, you can contact CERF 30 to 90 days before you want to start drawing your pension benefit. The Form 2V is one of the forms that has to be signed and dated no less than 30 and no more than 90 days. The county they may have you complete the top participant information form, but they should include your work history, your dates of when you're eligible for CERF, and your 2 highest years of salary. That's also on the first page. This is the time that you can look and see if maybe there's something missing. If you worked prior to 1994 for a county and you just realized it when you saw this, that would be a good time to contact CERF. We do have, it's called prior contributable service. So if you work for a county prior to 1994, that time is included in your CERF pension benefit. The next form is the Form 2B, the retirement application or designation of survivor. This form also has to be signed and dated, the same as the 2V. This is where you either decline a survivor or you include survivor information for your co-annuitant. This doesn't mean you have to pick the joint and survivor options. If you're married, I always suggest that you include your spouse. It will just show you what the benefit amount would be for joint and survivor options. If you decline here, you'll not see any joint and survivor options on your benefit estimate or your final when we mail that to you for completion. And this is where you sign and date the Form 2B, and we also need a copy of a driver's license, birth certificate, or state issued ID for the participant and for the survivor if you list one. The next form is the electronic funds transfer form. This is for the direct deposit authorization. We do pay via direct deposit only. The bank will have to complete the bottom portion of the form and you all complete the top portion of the form. If you have someone on your account, if you have a joint account holder, that person also has to sign and date this form. And then a voided check or direct deposit slip must be returned with this. There's the portion where the bank, you take it to the bank and they sign and date and complete the financial institution information. The next form is the federal form W4P. This is for federal tax withholdings. If you do not want anything withheld, you'll see the instructions when we sign it. The form is lengthy. But only one page needs to be returned. If you decide you don't want any withholding, you just write that down on the bottom. The only part of this form that actually has to be completed is step 1. If you want to complete the rest of the form, that's up to you, but step 1 has to be filled in, and then you have to sign and date the form. And the next one is the same, but for Missouri state tax. If you live out of state, no Missouri taxes can be withheld. If you're vested and no longer employed by a CERF county, you can begin receiving your benefit as early as 55. But as I stated earlier, this is actuarially reduced prior to age 62. And if you want an estimate of what that would be, if you are no longer working or when you leave county employment, we will mail a benefit estimate to you. It shows if you would commence from 55 to 62. The single life annuity is the normal form of payment. This is a monthly payment for the rest of your life, but after you pass away, the payments stop. So whether you receive 5 payments or 30 years of payments, they will continue until you pass away. The joint and survivor annuity is a smaller monthly payment than the single life because payments continue on to your designated co-annuitant. You can choose 50%, 75%, or 100% of the pension paid to the co-annuitant depending on their age. If the co-annuitant happens to pass away before you, there will still be no further benefits paid after your death, but your benefit would pop up to the increased single life annuity amount. We also offer a 10-year certain and life annuity. This is, again, a smaller monthly payment than the single life. This guarantees that at least 120 monthly payments, 10 years, are paid if you die before 120 payments have been received. You can designate more than one beneficiary. If you live longer than 10 years, the payments continue for your lifetime. If a beneficiary that is listed on the 2C passes away, the beneficiaries can then be updated. Again, this payment continues for your lifetime, but if you would happen to pass away before 120 payments are made, then it guarantees that many payments would be paid out. The next is the level income option. This is if you retire prior to age 62. It provides a higher income until you reach 62. And then the pension decreases to allow the combined retirement from CERF and Social Security to remain level. I always encourage members to talk with a financial advisor or a tax person, especially if you're going to pick the level income option. I would definitely recommend that. Unless you're really close to 62, maybe 8 months or less, this payment drastically drops. So if you leave at say 56, most of the time it goes to 0 when you hit 62. And inevitably we get many phone calls when people reach age 62 wondering why their payments have stopped or reduced greatly. And the joint and survivor and level income, it combines the joint and survivor annuity and the level income options. It causes a greater adjustment to initial pension than choosing just one of the 2 options. So again, it's going to drop off drastically once you reach age 62 or go completely to 0. But it does continue on to another person, whoever you choose as your co-annuitant. Monthly CERF pension benefit is taxable income. We will withhold for Missouri and federal income taxes at your request. You may adjust your withholding at any time via the member portal or by submitting updated forms to CERF. We do have to have this in writing. We can't accept phone calls asking to update tax withholdings. This is another really good feature of the member self-service portal. You're able to go in and complete tax updates on the member self-service portal. There is a Missouri public pension exemption, and you can visit Department of Revenue, it's dor.mo.gov, to read more about the exemption. CERF is a public pension plan. CERF's pension plan provides a cost of living adjustment to participants who have been receiving benefits for at least 1 year. It takes effect each July. So if you leave in March, you're not going to get that the 1st July, you will get it the 2nd July. And it's 100% of the consumer price index up to a 1% cap, and that's mandated by statute.
Hey, Nancy,
Yes.
we do have a question
Okay.
about the public exemption.
Uh-huh.
What's the benefit of the public exemption for participants?
Again, they would have to visit Department of Revenue. I'm not a tax preparer or a financial advisor, so I can't speak on that. But if they have a tax preparer or a financial advisor, they will be able to explain that to them.
Okay, I mean, would that be, I think the question is, would that just possibly give them a further tax write-off? Or is, I mean, just generally speaking, do you know what the public exemption does or not?
I do not know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
CERF sends a 1099-R form every January. This also is available on the member self-service portal. It shows the amount of retirement income you've received in the prior year and the amount of taxes withheld. Always remember to keep your most current address on file with CERF. That's another thing that you can check on the member self-service portal. If you move, please call and let us know if you don't have access to the member self-service portal, especially. If you're going to move, you can always call and let us know when your new address will be updated. We can go ahead and add it to your records, but that is most likely the only way we have to get a hold of you. And also, if you have updated cell phone numbers, any of your demographic information, please always keep that updated with CERF.
Hey, Nancy, sorry to interrupt again.
It's
Can you
okay.
go back to, somebody is asking to reshare the public exemption. I will
Sure.
go ahead and put that in the chat as well so that
Perfect.
everybody can see it. Okay, I've got it in there, so I'm going to go ahead and send that out via the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you retire and you decide you're really bored and you want to go back to work for the county full time, you have to have a 30-day break in service. So if you leave December 31st, you can't go back until February. Well, it's from your commencement date. So yes, so you can't go back until February 1st. If you work more than 1,000 hours per year, your pension will stop. If you want to work part-time and you're going to work less than 1,000 hours, as long as you have that 30-day break in service, your pension continues. It will not affect your pension at all. It will not be paid. The pension will not be paid if you're rehired in a full-time, more than 1,000-hour eligible, CERF eligible position. If you receive a pension payment in the month you return to work, it must be returned to CERF. You can go to work anywhere that's not a CERF eligible county position. You can go to work for the state, for a city, for a municipality, for Walmart. You can work anywhere other than a CERF eligible position, and it doesn't affect your benefit at all. And if you're just going to go back and push snow plows in the winter or help with elections, and you're not going to work 1,000 hours a year, that also would not affect your CERF pension benefit. While still employed with the county, CERF offers the following death benefits: a $10,000 death benefit. If you're married and vested, your spouse is entitled to a 50% survivor benefit. That benefit is paid out the month following the member's death or the month following when the member would turn 62. If the spouse decides to wait until the member would turn 62 and something happens to them in that time, there will be no further benefit. If you're single, the beneficiary receives a full refund of contributions made. Please keep your beneficiaries up to date. We have paid out death benefits to an ex-spouse before. It happens frequently. Of course, the spousal benefit would not be paid to an ex-spouse, but the death benefit would be if they are listed on your beneficiary form. And if there are no beneficiaries on file, it's just a hardship for the family that's left behind. It has to be paid out to an estate if we don't have any beneficiary information on file. If you're not sure who your beneficiaries are, you can look at the MSS portal that shows your beneficiaries. You can call CERF, and on your annual statement, um, there is also beneficiaries listed. And I just saw a question pop up and it left.
I can read it for you.
Thanks.
What's an example of a full $10,000 benefit? Who gets it?
So if you are an active employee and you pass away while you're working, whoever is listed on the Form 1A gets the $10,000 death benefit. So it just depends on who that person has listed. But if you are an active employee, if you are a part-time employee and you're in CERF and you have to work in with the month in which you pass away. But if you are a full-time employee, that benefit it's just an extra benefit that CERF offers to county employees. So whoever
Okay,
you
and then,
have, yeah, whoever you have listed, that's why it's important to keep that form up to date.
okay, and then we also have another question. Do we still pay Missouri taxes? I think the governor signed a bill that we do not pay taxes on retirement. Can you comment on that, Nancy?
I can't. I mean, that's another tax. I'm not a tax preparer. That's something that you should ask your tax preparer about. If you have other income, I think that also falls in the realm of what income you make. So I don't know. I apologize, but I am not a tax preparer, so I can't answer tax questions.
Okay, thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. We do have two benefit specialists, Kay Harmon and Tara Pope, who actually handle the death information. So if you are in a clerk's office and you're wondering who to call, you can call either of these numbers. And are there any additional questions? Well, I will stay on the line also while Robert does his presentation. So if anyone thinks of any questions during the next presentation, I will be online and I will be able to help you whenever he's finished. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Nancy. So I think since Nancy was fairly brief, let's just go ahead and dive into Robert's presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Robert Eastburn.
Thanks, Connie, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your morning to join with us, talk about retirement. And as Connie mentioned, I'm Robert Eastburn. I'm the individual from Empower that comes out to your counties to talk with you about your CERF 457 and 401A, the two components of your CERF savings benefit, but also to work with you individually to make sure you're getting the best benefit you can out of that and taking advantage of that. So we're going to talk this morning not only about the CERF 457 and 401A, but we are going to cover several other topics as well. When you're talking about Empower and who are we and how do we relate to CERF, you know, Empower is the second largest retirement services company in the country. And in order to do the work that we do and talk with you about your CERF 457 and 401A, you have to have certain licenses. And so CERF has used Empower for years to perform those services, to do what's called record keeping, to take care of the day-to-day monitoring, the management, the investing, the tracking of contributions, distributions, things like that out of your plan. And when we're there, our goal is to help you be as prepared for retirement as you can be. So what do? Well, we want you to have a good picture of what your retirement is looking like. We want to help you try to reach your retirement goals. We really want to see how close you can get when you're ready to retire to replace the same type of income you had while you were working. Because for most of us, if we can get to the point where we're retired and we've got the same kind of income coming in as what we had while we're working, we're going to be in good shape. But that income's not all going to come from one source. And in addition to income, when we think about retirement, we have to think about what do we want to spend in retirement because not everyone's goals are going to be the same. You know, some people want to travel. Some people want to move closer to the kids or the grandkids. Some people want to move someplace where it's not hot in the summer and cold in the winter. You know, there's a lot of different things, and we're not going to take a survey today, but if we did, and if I were to ask you what you imagine retirement to look like, every one of us would have a slightly different picture of what that looks like, and that's fine because retirement's personal and we should have our own goals, but all of those goals are going to have different expenses and different needs. So as you're thinking about your retirement, one of the things I would ask you to start picturing is, what do you want your retirement to look like? What do you want your retirement to be? As we talk about how ready you are for retirement, there's several things that we're going to touch on today, including Social Security. Nancy's already touched on your pension benefits. We're going to talk about the benefits of the 457 and the 401A, the two components of CERF savings. We're going to look at overall retirement income. We're going to talk about healthcare costs, and we're going to talk about emotional readiness for retirement. So as we dive in and look at these different categories this morning, let's talk about where your retirement income will come from. Well, there's many sources, and most financial experts say that you really need to have at least 70%, upwards to 90 or 100% of your pre-retirement, your working income, to be able to maintain the same standard of living in retirement. And as I mentioned, we try to see how close you're getting to 100% because that just puts a person in a lot better shape. Well, that's going to come from multiple sources. Social Security, your CERF pension, possibly for those of you that are in a loggers county, your loggers pension, your CERF 457 and your 401A. But there's other sources of income that folks may have in retirement, including things like rental properties or farming income, raising cattle. Sometimes when people retire from the county, they go and they have income from other part-time work. Maybe they start a business. But the main thing when you think about your retirement goals and your retirement income is you really want to identify all of the sources because it's not all going to come from one place. And those multiple sources is what gives us that solid foundation that we need to have for retirement. Now, just like we did while Nancy was talking, if you have questions while I'm visiting with you and talking with you this morning, please share those in chat, and we will certainly be glad to field those questions as we go. Also, there may be a question that you have that's not appropriate due to the personal nature of the question to share in this type of a venue. If that's the case, my contact information is going to be at the end of the presentation. I want you to feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm always going to be glad to visit with you on an individual and private basis as well for those types of questions. So when you're thinking about it, you've got that picture of retirement out there, of what your retirement is going to look like, what you want it to look like. There's a few questions you really want to ask yourself. Well, am I in a position to stop working? Am I in a position where I can afford to not have that check come in from the county on a regular basis? What does my retirement picture look like as far as expenses? How much am I going to need every month to make ends meet? What's healthcare going to look like? Am I eligible for healthcare when I retire? Am I going to have to provide that on my own for a period of time? What do I want to do? Do I want to continue to work part-time? Where do I want to live? Do I want to live in Missouri? Do I want to move somewhere else? These are all questions that as you're picturing this perfect retirement, you really want to start asking yourself. Now, as a quick snapshot and a quick 30,000 foot overview of what your retirement could look like, I'm going to encourage you, if you've not done so, to spend some time on empower.com, which is where you have the access to create a user ID and password and log in and see your CERF 457 and 401A benefits. Now, that is just the tip of the iceberg, though, as far as what you can see on this website. The more information that you are willing to share, such as your estimated pension estimate, things of that nature, the more the picture can be holistic and give you an overall picture of all of your retirement things added together and what it's all going to look like for you. So in this particular example, this individual has shared some information about outside accounts like pensions or other investments they have when they want to retire, things of that nature, and they're on track to replace 76% of their goal income of what they needed. So there are tools there that are great for you to have, to be able to look at, to be able to use. I'll share a few more examples as we go through the presentation this morning, but I would encourage you, if you have not done so already, create that user ID and password out on empower.com and spend a little bit of time with the tools out there that are available to help you get that high level overview of what retirement is tracking for you personally. So I do want to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about Social Security. Now, keep in mind, I work for Empower. I take care of your CERF 457 and 401A plans. I do not work for Social Security. So what we're going to say about Social Security and Medicare and some of these other items that we're going to talk about this morning is not advice. It's not a recommendation of what you should or should not do. It's meant to be information and education. So as we talk, keep in mind that there's three main ages for Social Security that apply to everyone. There's the early or partial benefit age, and that's age 62. Then there's what they call a full benefit age or full retirement age, and that's going to vary for everybody. It's going to be somewhere between age 66 and age 67, depending on what year you were born. So if you were born like me in 1960 or after, your full Social Security retirement age is age 67. You can take it before that, but for every month you take it before that, it's going to be reduced. Now, there's also a maximum age, and the maximum age is the age when your benefit quits increasing based off of age, but that's age 70. And let me just give you an example of what that might look like for me. If, for example, I'm an age 67 person for my full benefit age, if I take my Social Security at 67, let's pretend my benefit is $1,000 a month. Well, if I decide, though, I'm going to take it at 62, it's going to be reduced by 30%. So that's a $1,000 a month is going to look more like $700 a month for me if I start mine at 62. However, if I wait till age 70, it's going to be increased by 8% a year. So that would be 3 years from age 67 to age 70 that it would be increased. So that's a 24% increase. So if I waited till age 70, I'd be looking at $1,240 per month. Now, each month that you work, they'll recalculate that to the month to see exactly what that is between ages 62 and 70. But just keep in mind that generally the longer you delay in taking your Social Security up till age 70, the larger that monthly payment's going to be. The trade-off on that is you're going to receive it for less months. So there's always a trade-off, and I'm generally asked two questions about that. And one is, how much is my Social Security going to be? And the answer is, I don't know. What's on your screen right now are some just estimates that are out there based off of your salary. And as you can see, the lower your salary, the more percent of your salary that Social Security is designed to replace. But the other thing I can tell you is out at ssa.gov, and you want to make sure you go to the .gov and not .com website. So ssa.gov, you can sign up for a user ID and password with Social Security, and you can see your exact estimate that way. The second main question that I'm asked is, Robert, when should I take my Social Security? And that's another question that nobody really knows the answer for, because the longer you delay it, the higher the monthly payment's going to be, but the less number of monthly payments you're going to get total in your lifetime because you're delaying getting the payments started. So this particular chart just takes an individual. It assumes that they're in the 62, 66, and 70 years of age. It assumes a salary of $50,000 a year, just so we can keep all of the numbers even on this. But what it shows you on the first white circle, it shows age 80. And that's if a person lives till age 80. And the light blue color at the top says if they started taking it at 62 and they lived until age 80, they would get $223,000 in change in total benefits, 1 month at a time from Social Security. If this individual, though, waited until age 66, their full retirement age, and did not take a penalty, their total payments by age 80 would add up to $299,000. So that's $76,000 and change, or $75,000 and change in additional benefits 1 month at a time that they would get by age 80. However, if they waited until age 70 to start taking it, they would draw $287,000. So if we knew in this example that we were going to live to age 80, well, waiting until age 66 would maximize our total return from Social Security. Now, if you live to age 85, for this example, waiting till 70 maximizes. And if you live till age 90, waiting till 70 to start drawing your benefit maximizes. Now, here's what we don't know. None of us know how long we're going to live, right? But we can look at our families of origin and say, okay, you know, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, they all lived well into their 90s. I'm fairly healthy. I've got a good shot of that, of living till not in my 90s as well, based off of that. So, you know, maybe I want to delay taking my Social Security so I can get the maximum benefit over time. Other individuals might say, you know, when I look at my family, we don't live long after we retire. And, you know, I'm going to go ahead and start taking my Social Security as early as I can to get as many payments as I can, even I know they're going to be less. Now, let me talk with you about something we can do on an individual basis. Many of you on the call today have met with me privately to talk about your own accounts, and we've done this process of doing a retirement review where I do an analysis for you of what you're tracking for from all of your benefits based off of what age you want to retire, based off of how much income you feel like you're going to need. And we do a detailed analysis for you on that. And when we do that analysis, I can run that for several different ages to see how waiting to different ages might impact you. And that's something we're glad to do. For those of you that have not done that, have not met with me that on today's call, you know that when I want to let you know that when we're there in the county and I do that kind of work, we don't work on a commission. I'm not there to sell you something. I actually act in a capacity to act in your best interest. And our goal is to try to help you be as prepared for retirement as you can be. Now, when we do those meetings, if there's something that's going to benefit you for us talking about it, or something that looks like a change that might help you be better on track for your goals, we will also talk to you about what those changes are, how it would impact things, and then give you your options on if you want to implement those changes. So those are really nice meetings. When I'm in your county, that takes 30 to 45 minutes to conduct one of those meetings individually. But if I'm not coming to your county soon and you want to conduct one of those, we can set up a way to do that through a WebEx type setting like what we're doing this morning. Connie, before I move on, were there any questions so far that came through?
There is just one question, and that is around taking Social Security benefits and pension retirement. Can you take Social Security and your retirement while you are still working?
Okay, so the answer to that, unfortunately, is possibly, but there's going to be some ramifications. So, for example, let's say somebody is age 62 and they retire from the county, but they go to work full time somewhere else. Well, they're going to meet the requirements that Nancy described for being able to take their pension, right? They're going to get their pension payment every month for the rest of their life. But if they start their Social Security prior to their full retirement age, which is somewhere between age 66 or 67, depending on when you're born, there's a limit to how much you can earn from income per year before your Social Security payments will stop or get penalized. And that is going to be something, if a person's considering doing that, I am going to recommend that they talk to the Social Security Department, have an idea of how much income they're anticipating they're going to make to see how that would impact that, because it's potential. It could have a small, medium, or very large impact to their Social Security payments, depending on how much earned income they have from employment while they're drawing their Social Security. Now, once you get to your full retirement age, Connie, whether that be 66 or 67, that test goes away and you can earn as much as you want from employment without receiving a penalty to your Social Security. Now, it might impact taxes further, but no longer a penalty after you reach your full retirement age. That's a great question, folks. And I definitely would encourage a little bit of work on that individually based on your own situation, that you talk to your Social Security office, that you talk to your tax advisor. Make sure you're in a good position, have a good understanding of how that impacts you.
All right, that's all for now. Thanks, Robert.
Awesome. Thanks, Connie. So we're going to talk about healthcare. And one thing that Empower has found through surveys and studies that we've done is, for many people, that healthcare cost in retirement will be your largest single expense for many people. In fact, this particular slide shows that an average healthy 65-year-old couple could expect to see over $600,000 worth of healthcare cost in retirement, and that excludes any long-term care or nursing home type cost. So healthcare costs continue to go up, and folks, this is something we need to make sure we have a plan for as we're talking about retirement. Well, what's impacting that? Well, one is on average, people are living longer than they used to. A second thing that's impacting this is the fact that the cost of healthcare has historically risen over faster than the cost of general inflation. But then the third thing is a lot of people are retiring before they are eligible for Medicare, and that's causing more out-of-pocket cost and higher insurance premiums until they're Medicare eligible. So I do want to talk with you just a little bit about Medicare. And just like I said earlier about Social Security, I do not work for Medicare. I do not offer products that help you with this. So this is meant to be a general overview to give you enough information so that you can go talk to someone that does this, a professional in this area, to get more details and information. So we're going to talk about some general truths on coverage and cost. We're going to talk about eligibility and enrollment for Medicare. The first thing is there's 4 big parts to Medicare. Now, there's some other parts that might be available through a supplemental plan, but for right now, we're going to talk about these 4 main parts. And that the first 2, Part A is hospital coverage, and Part B is medical coverage, like a doctor's office visits. Those are the 2 parts that when we hear the word traditional Medicare, that's what it's talking about. That's your regular old-fashioned Medicare that we're all familiar with, hospital coverage and medical coverage. Over the last 15 years or so, there's been a Part C that became available called Medicare Advantage. And what this does is this bundles Parts A and B with potentially some other benefits through a private insurance company that is regulated and has to file with Medicare to be able to offer these services. Now, we all see these commercials where it talks about in our areas where we live at, on TV, that we can get this coverage and it's going to add this, it's going to add that, it's going to reduce deductibles, things like that to Medicare. So that's a Medicare Advantage plan. Now, in addition to that, there is Part D, which is prescription drug coverage. And in the lifetime of Medicare, that's a relatively recent add-on to the Medicare programs. And you can get Part D, whether you have Part A and B, or whether you have Part C. So D is an add-on to however you go about getting your regular Medicare. Now, in addition to those 4 parts, A, B, C, and D, there's something called a Medicare supplement plan. And these are private insurance companies. You would have a supplement when you have traditional Medicare. So traditional parts A, B, possibly D. You buy a supplement as well, and that supplement helps to cover the cost that Medicare doesn't, such as your co-pays, your co-insurance, your out-of-pockets, things of that nature. Again, those are not offered by Medicare. They're offered by Medicare, private insurance companies' plans, but they are regulated by the federal government. So generally, these supplement plans are going to be very similar, if not exact, in coverage, regardless of who you buy them from. But again, the supplement plans are separate and different than Medicare Advantage plans. That's Part C. So when you see things on TV, you'll see them talk about like Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement. Just keep in mind, they look very similar, they sound very similar, they act very similar, but they are subtly different. Generally, regardless of what you do, though, you're going to have some premium amount that you're going to pay. Depending on what you select, you may pay a premium above the Part B typical premium that the government sets every year. Generally, just like health insurance that we might get through our employers, there's going to be a deductible. There's going to be an amount you're going to pay before Medicare starts paying anything. Once you've met your deductible, there's generally going to be a copayment. So, for example, we see like $20, for example, every time you go to your doctor. In some plans, that applies before your deductible. Some plans, that applies after your deductible. In addition to those, you're going to have what's called coinsurance, where you and Medicare or your Medicare plan or your supplement are going to split the cost. Where, for example, after you meet your deductible, the plan will pay 80% of this coverage and you'll pay the remaining 20%. So the main thing to keep in mind is your Medicare costs are going to look and feel very similar to the look and feel of what you've experienced from your employer-sponsored healthcare plans. It's just going to have different numbers as far as what the premiums, deductibles, copays, and coinsurance is. You become eligible for Medicare when you turn 65. You do not have to be taking Social Security to be eligible for Medicare. So you can have Medicare but not be drawing your Social Security yet. or you could be drawing your Social Security prior to age 65 and not have Medicare yet, which kicks in at age 65. You may still have other health coverage and Medicare at the same time. So keep that in mind. 65 is kind of the big deal. And I need to just stress that when you're thinking about your Medicare, you need to be talking to somebody that is a professional in this. 3 months before you turn 65, the month you turn 65, and no later than 3 months after you turn 65. That's what's known as your initial enrollment period. And if you don't take the appropriate steps, even if you don't fully enroll in all parts of Medicare at that time, let's say you're still working, you have coverage from your county, but if you don't take at least the appropriate steps working with a Medicare professional, you could end up having a Part B premium penalty for the rest of your life. Now, I don't know about you guys. I don't like penalties. I don't like paying more than what I absolutely have to for anything. So I'm going to encourage you, if you take nothing else out of what I've said today about Medicare, you need to be talking to a professional with Medicare about either right before or right after you turn 65, so you can make sure you're doing the steps you need to take at that time to ensure you don't get a penalty on your Medicare Part B premiums for the rest of your life. Now, in addition, there are things that can cause you to have a special open enrollment period where you could change your plans or make alterations to your Medicare plans, like your Advantage plans, like if your coverage ends or your plan changes its contract or you move to a new address. In addition to that, there's an annual open enrollment that allows you to switch plans once a year between October 15th and December 7th. So there's a lot of things that happen with Medicare that are going to feel very similar to your employer-sponsored plan, where you have an open enrollment period where you can make changes, things of that nature. So the one thing that I want to communicate, make sure you're on board at age 65. Make sure that you're talking to an appropriate Medicare professional and that you're taking the steps that you need to ensure that you're not getting yourself a penalty. Connie, do we have any questions about Medicare before I talk about health savings accounts?
Yes, there is one question. And I believe you may have addressed this, but let's go ahead and repeat it as well. Do you have to sign up for Medicare if your employer still offers insurance and you're still employed?
Okay. The answer is you may have something while you're still employed and your employer offers coverage that qualifies you as an exemption, where you do not have to start receiving Medicare premiums or paying the Part B premium. You're going to want to talk, though, to a Medicare professional to take a look at your current health care provisions to make sure it's a qualified plan. Many of them are, so I don't want to scare anybody. A lot of them are qualified, some of them aren't, but you want to make sure that's qualified. And there may be a reason for you still to start Part A at age 65, but not start Part B until you actually retire and no longer have coverage. Again, I am not telling anyone that is what they should do, but there are cases where that is something that would benefit some individuals. So again, if you're age 65, you want to talk to somebody that works with Medicare, take a look at your situation, because you may not have to file, or it may be to your benefit to file for Part A, which has no monthly premium, but wait on filing for Part B that does have a monthly premium until you are no longer working for that employer. It's a great question.
All right, that's it for now. Thank you, Robert.
Awesome. Thank you, Connie. So in addition to this, some of you may be covered in your counties right now under something called a health savings account with a high deductible insurance plan. Now, you do have to have what the IRS qualifies as a high deductible insurance plan. And when those are there, they generally offer you a health savings account where you can elect to put money back into an account. After a certain dollar amount, that money can be invested. And then that money grows from year to year until you take it out and spend it. So this is different than a flexible spending account where you have to spend it every year. So not everybody on today's webinar may be covered by one of these. But if you are, you want to consider taking a long, hard look at that. Because since it can grow from year to year, you don't have to take the money out while you're still working. You could allow that, if you're able, to build up into retirement. And when you put that money in, it grows in pre-tax. It grows tax deferred. But even if you take it out in retirement, as long as you use it for a healthcare, qualified healthcare cost, it comes out tax-free. So it's triple tax advantaged. So this can be something that if you have this available, where this could be a nice benefit for you to use in addition to your CERF 457 and 401A savings plans to help you prepare for healthcare cost in retirement. Main reason for this, we talked about earlier, that for many people, healthcare costs are going to be your number one expense, largest expense in retirement. With that being the case, if you can use tax-free money to pay for that expense rather than after-tax money, that's going to help you on your overall expenses. So I just want to mention that. That's something that I don't want to dive into a lot of details this morning on, but if you have questions, that would be a good thing for us to talk about privately offline and schedule a meeting with me. One additional resource I do want to share with you all this morning, dealing with healthcare cost, on the empower.com website. If you were to create your own user ID and password, there is a healthcare tab where a person can go in, they can indicate what state they plan to retire in, what age they plan to retire at. There's a list of potential medical conditions a person might have. And if any of those fit your situation, if you check those, it will then give you an estimated cost of what people are experiencing currently that have those same conditions in that same state, of how much their average spending is. So this is a good way to get a good estimate of what your personal health care cost might look like. Again, that's another tool that's available to you for free on the Empower website once you've created your own user ID and password. Another reason to go out and look at that. I do see a question come in about how soon do you have to stop contributing to an HSA before you retire. That's going to be based off of as long as you've got income from the plan, and as long as you have a qualified high deductible insurance plan. So as long as you're working for the county and you have a qualified high deductible insurance plan, you can continue to contribute to that HSA until such time as your salary stops. So basically, as long as you're working. You do not have to hold the money in there a set period of time before you take distributions. So this can, again, just be a nice way to help you put back some additional pre-tax money. So save you potentially on your taxes today as the money goes into it, build up over time, and then take it out without any taxes, even on the earnings, for qualified health care cost in retirement. So great question on that. I would like to spend just a few minutes talking about something that we don't normally think about a lot regarding retirement, and that's what does it look like? Well, retirement, folks, it's an emotional thing, and a lot of times we don't think about that, but there's going to be some emotions that most of us are going to face or walk through as we walk into and through retirement. A lot of us have this growing interest. Hey, we all want to retire. At some point when we retire, we get this initial euphoria. This is great. It's snowing. I don't have to get out and drive to work today. It's a wonderful day. Whatever that those feelings look like, it may be different for all of us, but a lot of us go through that stage. Then there starts becoming some stress of, well, did I make a good decision? Is this going to really work? How are things going to work out? Do I need to go back to work? What do I need to do? Some of that stress comes in. Then a lot of times, just like everything else, we adjust to whatever the new normal is for us, and then things settle down emotionally. The reason I talk about this on the spend just a few slides talking about this is just to encourage you to think that, what, there's going to be some emotional things that are going to happen as I'm coming up to retirement and once I retire, and that's fine and that's normal, and I should expect those things to happen. There's nothing wrong with me if I'm having thoughts like this. This is normal for most people to go through this. We do find that sometimes these are some additional things that cause those emotions to be a little stronger for some folks. Some people feel like they lost identity, especially if they've worked for a long time for the county, and that's what they've done for their entire career. Sometimes the lack of structure can be an issue for individuals. Sometimes it can lead to problems making decisions. Some people deal with depression. Sometimes when you don't have a deadline, it's easy to procrastinate. So there's some issues that way. Sometimes we miss our friends that we had at work and we get a little lonely. Sometimes people think about too, you know what, I'm retired now. That's the big one. What comes next? Well, for a lot of people, they start worrying about how long they're going to live and things of that nature. What we have found for a lot of folks is that if you do certain things as you retire and once you've retired, that it can help with these. The first thing, and this isn't on the slide, but I'm going to encourage you to think about what am I retiring to, not just what am I retiring from. In other words, have something that you're wanting to do when you retire, something you're looking forward to doing, something you want to take on, whether that's a hobby, whether it's part-time work, whether it's sports or activities, or it's the grandkids, or it's volunteering, or it's different social events or engagements. Having those types of things can really help to anchor our emotions during the time when we're transitioning through retirement. So at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit more specific about your CERF 457 and 401A. I'm going to spend a little time talking about the investment options as far as some investment things to keep in mind in retirement. I'm also going to talk about some different withdrawal strategies that people implement. So big picture as we jump into this, your CERF 457 and 401A, if your balance is more than $1,000 in each of those accounts when you retire, you do not have to take the money out. This is a question I get asked a lot. Somebody's retiring at 62. They're starting their Social Security. They're starting their CERF pension. Maybe they have a loggers pension. They're starting that as well. And they look at me and they say, Robert, okay, now I need to make arrangements because I got to take my money out of my CERF savings. All that money I've built up all the years, all the match that CERF's put in for me, all that it's earned, I got to take it out. So how do I do that? And the answer is you don't have to take it out immediately when you retire. You are allowed to keep those accounts open. You can no longer contribute to them. You can't add any more money, but they can still fluctuate in value and hopefully grow over time based off of the investments. And just because you don't take the money out on day one of retirement doesn't mean you can't ever take it out. You can start taking it at any point after you've been off county payroll at least 30 days. Now, Nancy talked earlier about on your CERF pension that there's what the IRS calls a required minimum distribution. When you have to take some of the money, you have to start receiving benefits. And that's true on your CERF 457 and 401A. And just to clarify on that real quickly, the 457 is where your voluntary money goes out of your paycheck. The 401A is where the match, the CERF deposits, it gets deposited in the match. And if you're in a non-loggers county, you're required to contribute by state statute 0.7% of your salary each pay period into the CERF savings. That also goes into the 401A. And there's IRS reasons on why we have to keep those separate. So just keep in mind the 457 is the voluntary money. The 401A is the CERF match and any mandatory contributions that you have to put into that. But with that being said, once you've been off payroll 30 days, you have options on how you take that money if you want it. You can take it as a lump sum if you choose to and take it all out at once. You can say, Robert, I don't want any now, but I'll take a little here and there as I need it. And maybe you take $500 or $1,000 or $5,000 out here, and then we hear from you some point in the future when you want more. We have other people that set up so much a month where they want to have a monthly withdrawal from the account and just have it ACH'd into their checking account. We'll do that. And as long as you've got a balance, you can change what you're doing on your CERF savings plan. So folks, keep that in mind. It's extremely flexible. You don't have to take it out immediately when you retire, but you have a lot of options on how you take it out through retirement. So that being said, I want to talk first or next a little bit about investing in our retirement accounts. And generally, there's some principles you hear people throw around and talk about. They talk about things like asset classes, asset allocation, diversification, rebalancing. Basically, these are just some terminology that I want to spend a minute or two talking about. An asset class is a type of investments. Sometimes you'll hear them talk about the Dow Jones Industrial Average or the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is an asset class. Those are large U.S. stock funds. Or you'll hear them talk about bonds, or you'll hear them talk about foreign stocks. Those are just different types of investments. Those are asset classes. An asset allocation is how much do I have in each of the asset classes? So how much do I have in large company stocks? How much do I have in bonds? How much do I have in international stocks? How much do I have in fixed income or cash accounts? Diversification is not putting all of your eggs in one basket. So the nice thing about your CERF savings plan is when you invest, that money goes into funds, and those funds diversify the assets over multiple companies or multiple investment choices. So you're getting diversification of some sort in any of the funds that you pick. And then rebalancing is over time, taking a look at how your money's distributed among the different investments, and do I need to make changes to that? Generally speaking, the closer we get to needing the money in retirement, the more conservative we may want to be, or the longer we have before we need the money, the more aggressive we may want to be. Now, this is something that if you don't know your risk level and you don't know what risk level you should be at for your goals, that's another reason to have one of those private meetings with me where we can do the analysis and we can see at what risk level and what allocation of investments gives you the highest probability of meeting your goals and what is in your best interest as far as that. So if you're not sure where you're at on this, that's a reason that you want to schedule a meeting with me, whether it be when I'm there in your county or a private meeting over the phone to discuss. Generally, we identify three different types of investors. We have folks that are the do-it-myself investors, and these are the people that research the different investment choices. They make the decisions either by calling Empower customer service or on the website. They change their investments over time to be in line with what they want. And we don't, at Empower, we don't care which of these types of investors you are. All of these are available inside of your plan. We want you to do what works best for you. But a second type of an investor is what we would call a help me do it investor. And an example of that might be somebody that meets with me. We run that analysis. We show you what is statistically in your best interest on the investments. And then you say, okay, hey, thanks for that. I'm going to go out to the website. I'm going to use the tools there, and I'm going to pick the investments that I want based off of the analysis. And that's fine. We support that. If that's the way that you want to invest, there's ways to do that. You also have an option in your plan of a do-it-for-me investor. And that's designed for someone that does not want to deal with the day-to-day investment decisions. They want to leave that to a professional to have those decisions made for them based off of their goals and what they're wanting to accomplish as far as in their accounts between now and retirement or even into retirement. And that is also offered in your plan. The do it for me's is sometimes you'll hear us talk about managed accounts or my total retirement. That's the do it for me. And in that you do get the one-on-one plan. You get professional assistance. You get ongoing monitoring and adjustment of the plan automatic for you. That does have a small cost involved with it. Everybody that participates in that has their own plan. It's personalized. It's comprehensive. That's something that I can implement for you as a result of one of our evaluation meetings if you choose to do so. To help me do it, again, we are here to help you with those options, to help you get an idea of what would be in your best interest, and then you have the options of making changes as you see fit to your account. And then the folks that want to do it themselves, I just encourage you, if you pick your own investments, just to keep in mind that you do want to have some diversification. So you want to select a mix of investments. You need to decide how much to invest, and you do need to ongoingly manage and monitor your own accounts. Let me just give you an example of this. I know in my life, my goals have changed over time. When I was in high school, now this is starting to get to be many years ago, but back when I was in high school, I had the goal of driving a red Lamborghini car. Now there were some movies that came out about that time that probably influenced that goal, but there were some problems with that goal. One, I couldn't afford it. Two, I probably couldn't afford the speeding tickets I would get from it. And three, at that time, they all came as stick shifts, and I don't drive a stick well. So for me, that goal was not realistic, but that was my goal. But my goal today is not to drive a red Lamborghini. Today, I want a car I can get into and out of easily. I want something that's comfortable to ride in and something that gets good gas mileage. None of those apply to a red Lamborghini. My car goals have changed as I've matured and as I've gone through different stages in life. Well, your retirement investments may need to change as you go through different stages of life. And if it's been years since you've looked at your investments, you may have been investing appropriately for your age and your risk level when you set those up, but it may be time to take a review and analyze that and see if you should be making changes. Connie, before I talk about withdrawal strategies, did we have any questions come in on that?
The only question that we had was a little bit earlier when you were talking about leaving the money in the plan. Can you please comment and provide some pros and cons for leaving money in the plan versus rolling it into an IRA?
Sure. Absolutely, be glad to. And there are pros and cons. So this is something that the answer as far as what's best for you is going to vary depending on your situation. One, if you leave it with us, you're used to working with us. It's easy. You've already got that all set up. We're still available to help you even after you retire from the county. Two, your cost and fees and expense ratios and all of that are set by the plan, which means you're getting group rate pricing on all of that versus getting individual pricing like you would on an IRA. So some people have found that it's much less expensive on the expense ratios on the investments to leave it with us rather than moving it other places. Not everyone finds that to be true, but many people have. The third reason you may want to consider leaving it with us, and this is particular and specific to the 457 plan. If a person retires before age 59 and a half, this comes into play for the 457 part of CERF savings only. Because of the IRS designation of a 457 plan, there is no minimum age once you no longer work for the county that you have to get to before you can take penalty-free withdrawals. So for example, sometimes I talk with folks on our law enforcement side, and they're retiring at 55. Well, if they have money in an IRA, they can't touch that before 59 and a half, or they get an early withdrawal penalty. But their money in the 457, they would have access to prior than 59 and a half without an early withdrawal penalty. So in that type of a situation, having that money inside the 457 is a great benefit that you cannot get in any other type of a plan. And if you roll that over to an IRA, you lose that benefit. You're now governed by the IRA rules rather than the 457 rules as far as withdrawal. So there are pros and cons. Sometimes on the other side of things, Connie, I will talk to a person and maybe they've got a good friend or a family in the financial industry that's been helping them with outside accounts over time, and they are more comfortable having that money with that individual, and that might influence them to make that decision. But I would encourage you, if you've got a question on that, talk to me about your own situation. Let's walk through it together, and then you can make the decision having all of the information on what works best for you.
All right. Thanks, Robert. That's it for now.
Okay, folks, I do want to cover just a few principles and points about withdrawals during retirement. And there's a lot of things we can't control about our money in the 457 and 401A when we're retired. One, we don't know how long we're going to live. We know that the returns of the market, the investment returns, are going to fluctuate. We know that inflation increases generally over time, and we're not entirely sure what all of our future expenses are going to be. So when you think about withdrawing, you may want to keep in mind that there's going to be some flexibility needed. I'm going to show you just a few examples, though, of what some people do when they go to start withdrawing money. Some individuals say, hey, I'm going to withdraw a certain amount, and this is just a made-up hypothetical example of $20,000 a year. That's $1,600 a month and change. And then they're going to increase that a little bit every year to try to keep up with inflation. So that gives them a set monthly payment where they're trying to keep up with inflation out of their 457 and 401A. That's what we call a constant dollar amount strategy. Another strategy would be what's called a constant percentage, where I'm just going to take maybe 4% out every year. And when the market's up and there's a positive market and your balance grows, your distributions that year are going to be a little larger because it's percentage based. However, when the market goes down, your distributions are going to be a little smaller after that because, again, you're working on a percentage based. But some people choose to do that. Some people choose to take what's called the required minimum distribution approach, and they just take the amount they have to, according to the IRS, once they turn now 73 or 75 in the future, or used to be 72. And we calculate what that has to be per month to meet the IRS minimum that you have to take, and that's what they take. Just to ensure that, they leave the rest in the account. Other people do this, what's called a capital preservation method, where they say, okay, I've got a certain amount in my account. I'm just going to take out the earnings. I'm not going to worry about how much that is. I want to leave the balance alone and just touch the earnings. Those are 4 quick examples. Let me give you a 5th example. If you are doing that professional managed service, once you retire, we will work with you based off of your needs, your goals, all of that, as far as how much is an appropriate amount for your goals, your needs that you can take and have it be likely to last the rest of your life. So that's something that we will work with those folks on to help them develop that. Now, there's some rules and regulations where we have to be taking a fiduciary responsibility to you, and we have to be acting in your best interest, and we have to have discretion on your account to be able to do that, or authority on your account. That's the reason we can only offer that to those folks that have signed up for the professionally managed service where they're paying that additional fee. But that is an option for you as well, where you can get that one-on-one analysis done for you. On a free option, I would encourage you, again, on the Empower website, there's a withdrawal calculator where you can put in your balance, how much you think your rate of return is going to be during your retirement years, and you can get your own averages right from the website of what you've been doing, how much income you want, and it'll give you an idea of how long that your money should last you in retirement. So again, that tool is available for you for free, where you can play around with that on the empower.com website. I want to stop there. And Connie, were there any questions on that before I talk about taxation?
There were not.
Okay, awesome. So the good and the bad, when you put money into the plan, your money goes in pre-tax. What that means is that you've not paid taxes on that. The CERF match goes in pre-tax. You've not paid taxes on that. All of that money grows tax deferred. You're not paying taxes on the earnings each year. But what that does mean, someday in retirement, when you take your money out, you will owe taxes on your money in your CERF savings plan. Now, when you do a distribution, Empower is required to withhold 20% for federal income tax as a minimum. We can do more than that, but according to IRS regulations, we cannot do less than that. That does not mean that you're going to owe 20% taxes. You're not going to know how much you actually owe until you calculate your tax burden for the year. But this money will be taxable income. We will be required to withhold 20%. If that 20% ends up being more taxes than what you actually owe, it can be refunded to you, just like if the county over withheld on your paycheck today. But just keep in mind, you will have some tax complications or impacts on your money coming out of your CERF 457 and 401A. Now, different types of accounts that you might have elsewhere, like Roth IRAs, are going to be treated differently at retirement, assuming you meet the requirements. Another source of taxation is dealing with your Social Security, and depends on how much other income you have from things like wages, self-employment, other types of taxable income. A portion, none, or most of your Social Security could be taxable. Now, let me walk through this slide real quick. We're going to look at the individual only as an example. It says if that individual had taxable income of between $25,000 to $34,000, that up to 50% of their Social Security benefit would be taxable. That does not mean you're going to pay 50% tax, but it means if you got $12,000 a year in Social Security benefits, and up to 50% of that was taxable, 6,000 of that 12,000 would be included in your taxable income to determine how much tax you actually owe. Now, in that same example, if that individual had less than $25,000 of taxable income that year, their Social Security benefit would not be included at all in their taxable income. And if they had more than $34,000 of taxable income, 85% of their Social Security benefit would be included in their income to calculate how much tax is owed. These numbers change on a regular basis, so don't take these as the numbers you're going to see, but the principle still is there that some of your Social Security benefit might be taxed depending on how much income you have. Again, as we're talking about how much your retirement income is going to be taxed, it's going to depend an awful lot on how much income you have and the type of income. So some other taxable events that you might have if you have like an after-tax accounts, for example, you bought stock in a brokerage account, if you sell that stock and it's appreciated in value, you may owe some taxes on the gains of that. If you have bonds or stocks that pay dividends or interest, you could have some taxes on those types of accounts. So here's the thing that I want to stress. If you're not sure about your tax situation, and just like Nancy said, I'm also not a tax advisor. You need to talk to a qualified professional. There is a lot of things that can help and hurt on taxes. So we recommend that you talk to a qualified professional tax advisor to help you navigate through the tax laws in your own situation. I do want to spend a few minutes this morning as well talking about the impact of inflation in retirement. And generally, we have two types of expenses in retirement. We have things that are fixed expenses, and we have things that are variable expenses. An example of a fixed expense is something that's not going to change from month to month. So for example, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, interest on your mortgage, you know how much you're going to pay on your mortgage. As long as you don't refinance, it's going to be that every month. An example of a variable expense would be gasoline for your car or groceries. The price is going to change from month to month. On this slide, I'm showing you some examples of how much things have increased over a 31-year or 41-year period of time from 1980 to 2021. And you can see that everything did increase, but different types of things increased at a different rate. And that's just what inflation does. The reason I bring this up is as you progress through retirement and as you live longer in retirement, the longer you're in retirement, in all likelihood, the more expensive things are going to become. So when you retire, you want to make sure that on your CERF savings, your 457 and your 401A, that you're still investing not only for day one of retirement, but investing some of that money like you might have it there for 30 years in retirement, and things are going to continue to get more expensive. This slide shows just a representation of how much $100 would buy in 1980 versus the average $100, how much it would buy in 2021. You can see that there's quite a bit of difference. Connie, any questions about investing or distribution options before I talk a little bit about long-term care?
Yes, we do have one question. You mentioned 401ks and IRAs. Are either of those good options as a 5-year investment if I have a lump sum to invest, 5,000 plus?
Okay, so Connie, this is one of those it depends questions, and I apologize for giving that kind of an answer. One, it's going to depend on what else you've got going on. So if a person already has a good emergency fund and they've got a cash reserve, then investing that money might be appropriate for them. If they don't, then using that money to build up a cash reserve might be more appropriate for them. The second question, the reason it depends on this as well, is what's going to happen at the end of that 5 years. If the money's going to sit there and still be reinvested and still have a potentially to grow, generally if you're investing for a 5-year period or longer, we consider that an investment. So the 5-year is right on the line where some financial professionals are going to say, yeah, you can afford to invest that in the markets because the markets fluctuate up and down. And most of the time over 5 years, they're going to go up more than they go down. But there's been 5-year periods of times where that's not been true. So it depends a little bit on what's going to happen with that money at the end of the 5 years. If it's going to be able to stay in that investment, then an investment might not be a bad choice. If, however, at the end of that 5 years, they need it for a set expense, like maybe an example would be like a balloon house payment where they know they've got a large house payment coming due when the house note renews at that time. And those aren't as common as they used to be, but that's one example of something where it could be, where they know that they're going to need every penny of that in exactly 5 years. In that situation, it might be better to save that money in a secure account. It's something that's not necessarily earning a lot of interest, but something that doesn't fluctuate up and down in value. Now, 401ks and IRAs, those are just umbrellas for tax purposes. So you can have any type of investment inside of a 401k or an IRA. So again, the 401ks and the IRAs are just dealing with how it's taxed and who provides it, whether you're getting it on your own, an IRA, or you're getting it through a non-governmental employer, a 401k retirement plan. So it's going to depend an awful lot on a person's needs, what their goals are, and how long their actual total time horizon is before they need the money. I would encourage a person that if they've got a specific question on that might be a good reason to talk with me, and let's take a look at your overall situation and your total goals to get a better idea of what that looks like, so I can give a more detailed answer, or more personalized answer, I should say. Were there any other questions that came through?
There is, and it's more general in nature, but since we're taking questions right now, we'll go ahead and address it right now. You talked about registering my account with Empower. How do I register my account with Empower?
The process is going to depend on if you are participating in CERF savings. If you are, it's going to be one way. If you're not already in, it's going to be a little bit of a different process, because you may want to consider enrolling, and it'll walk you through that. But if you're already in the CERF savings, if you go to empower.com, up at the top, there's going to be a login button. You're going to hit that. It's going to ask you questions that you know the answers for, because we already know certain answers about you because you have an account. If you can prove that you're you based off of that, it'll walk you through a process of creating your own user ID and password. You can see that on any computer that you log into, desktop, laptop, it doesn't matter. If you use an iPhone, we've got an app for you on your iPhone or your iPad, whatever you use that way. If you use an Android device, we've got apps in the Play Store for those as well. So whether you're using a computer, a smartphone, a tablet, there's ways for you to be able to access that and get that information at any time. And Connie, I've got to tell you, I may be a little biased, but I've spent quite a bit of time on my own account playing around with it and looking at the tools that are out there, just to educate myself on what's available. And there are some incredibly strong and powerful planning tools on the Empower website that you have access to at absolutely no cost to help you with your retirement plan and your overall financial wellness as well. These are tools that most people don't have access to through their employer plan, unless they're working with like a financial advisor on the side. So I've got to tell you, your plan is providing you a great set of tools that are absolutely no obligation, no charge to you to use for your own retirement planning. And I would encourage you to spend some time out there doing it.
Okay, thanks, Robert. And then just as an added as well, registering your account is a good thing to do for your data security. And at first, when I heard that a while back, it seemed kind of counterintuitive. You would think, most people think if I put my information out there, then it's more vulnerable, but the opposite is actually true. If you don't register your account, then somebody else could register your account. And again, they're going to ask questions to make that really, really difficult to do. But just by registering your account, you're providing us ways to contact you as well. So if we see suspicious activity on your account, then we can get in touch with you very quickly to verify if it's you or if it's not you. So just kind of an added little bit of information that I learned for myself a while back, and I thought it was interesting and worth sharing. We do have one more question. Can I roll my Roth IRA into my CERF account?
Connie, unfortunately, at this time, the CERF savings plan does not accept Roth contributions. So the answer to that is currently no. Having said that, Empower can offer you individually a Roth IRA for individuals that want a place to have their Roth IRA handled and placed, we can do that for an individual as a individual Roth IRA. And when they log into their Empower account to look at their CERF savings, they would also be able to see that Roth IRA information and manage it right there at the same place. So that's a great resource that's available to you, but at this time it cannot be rolled into your CERF savings plan.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. That's it for now. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So folks, let's talk a little bit about long-term care. And we're going to talk just a little bit about what long-term care is and what it isn't, and how that might impact your retirement savings. Just like I talked about Medicare and I talked about Social Security, I do not work for a long-term care provider. I do not offer long-term care insurance. This is meant to be educational. I'm not telling you what you should do, but I want to give you enough information so that you can go out and make some of those decisions with more information. So long-term care is a type of insurance that includes things like nursing homes. We talk about that, but it can also include, if you have the issues with what they call the activities of daily living, you can also receive long-term care if you have enough of these, such as bathing, dressing, housework, grocery shopping, things of that nature. And every long-term care policy is a little different on what triggers the coverage and what doesn't. But types of long-term care include homemaker services. People that this is designed for people that live in their own home, but they need someone to come in and help them. And generally that type of a care in 2019 was averaging about $21 an hour. There's what's called an adult daycare, where these are support services where maybe a person during the day where their spouse goes to work, the other spouse goes to this care facility that's very, it's designed for people that are more mobile and more able to take care of themselves, but they need some help when their caregiver is not there. Generally, it's less than 24 hours at a time, and the national median on that was $70 a day. There's what's called assisted living. These are for people that need some personal care and health services, but aren't ready for nursing or need for nursing home care. And at the time that this was done, that was averaging about $37.50 a month. And then semi-private room nursing home care, where you are needing medical assistance. You know, at the time that this survey was done on cost, it was averaging $235 a day. And these are just what we see as far as national averages in 2019 from a study from Genworth, which is a large provider of those types of services. Again, I'm not recommending them. That's just the source of the survey. But people say, well, does Medicare cover that, or Medicaid? Well, Medicare may cover up to 100 days of service in a nursing home if you meet certain types of qualifications, meaning there usually has to be a triggering event, such as a hospital stay, where then a person is going into a nursing home where they are getting rehabilitation type care. And then that Medicare service may cover up to 100 days. It may also cover some healthcare services that meet certain conditions as well for home health care. Medicaid, of course, is different, and Medicaid can cover nursing home services for people above age 21. There's housing community-based services that could also assist in this, as well as in most states allowing you to stay at home if possible under this Medicaid program. Medicaid programs, though, as we know, they have limitations of how much assets and income you can have to qualify for them. But the general rule is that Medicare itself does not provide a complete solution for long-term care needs, because a lot of times when people need long-term care, it's for more than 100 days. I want to talk a little bit about estate planning. Connie, I feel like I'm spending more time talking about what I'm not in this presentation than what I am, but I'm going to need to do that one more time. I am not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, but you do need to have some type of a plan for your estate, because eventually we're all going to have one. The plan will help us determine who our heirs are, where the money is going to be distributed, who gets what, whether that be friends, family members, charitable institutions, things of that nature. Estate planning, though, also goes beyond who gets what, and it deals with who takes care of what. So as a part of your estate plan, you may need to designate what your wishes are as far as end of life Medicare medical decisions, I should say, or medical care. If you, especially if you're not in a position to be able to make those decisions on your own. So for example, if I was in a car wreck and I was not medically able to communicate, what would I want my wishes to be if there were no possibilities of recovery from that? You know, additional things that you make decisions on that are outside of possessions would be possibly guardianship of children. Who's going to take care of the kids, or who you're responsible for should you become incapacitated or pass away? Some possible components of an estate plan, and every plan is different, so you may have some, none, or all of these. A lot of times most people are going to need either a will or a trust, or potentially both. Wills determine how you want your property distributed. It determines future care of minor children. You need to keep up with this regularly, because your needs may change over time as far as what's in that. A trust is a little more complicated. It does similar things to a will. The main difference is a will has to be probated. It has to go through probate, where a trust bypasses probate. Another part of your estate plan is going to deal with your insurance, like life insurance, for example. Who's going to be the beneficiary of that? How are they going to take care of that? It's going to determine who is either the successor trustee to your trust, or your executor or executrix, who's going to take care of making sure that your wishes are defined in your will, and that's somebody that you select. I would encourage you strongly to make sure that you have these things in place, that you've talked to a qualified professional, that you have a plan out there and it is up to date with your wishes. I'm also going to strongly encourage you to make sure that someone other than you knows where to get this information. I'm going to share just an example, and I won't share any names, but when I was much younger, I worked at a different company, and one of my coworkers, a good friend of mine, had her parent had passed away and had left no information on where they had accounts. So this friend of mine spent the next 3 years, every time something would come to the house addressed to the parent, to the family member that had passed away, contacting those institutions and those organizations to find out what was there insurance, was there not, was there an asset, was there not. And all of that could have been simplified and helped that family member out had their parent previously made a list of where things were at, that she knew where to go to, my coworker knew where to go to find, and it would have simplified things. So I want to encourage you that you have some type of a file somewhere that talks about where you have money. For example, I have a CERF 457 and 401A. It's record kept by Empower. This is the customer service number. Or I have a CERF pension benefit. While I'm still working, there's a death benefit. Here's how you get in contact with CERF pension. And you've got all of this on a list, so that if something were to happen to you, whether it be your passing or incapacitation, somebody knows where that list is, so that they can go through and take care of things. And that just makes it much easier on your survivors. So I do encourage you to have that. In addition to that, on the Empower website, there are some tools about estate planning, where it can talk to you about what are some of the key components. You can kind of play around with this, identify where your priorities are, what you've got left to do to get your estate plan into a position that it's a good plan for you. So what do we do from here? Well, I gave you several websites throughout the presentation, the SSA.gov for Social Security. On the Medicare plans, if you're not sure of what plans are available in your zip code, you can go to medicare.gov, and please make sure you go to .gov, not .com on this as well. You can put in your zip code. You can see what plans are available to you in your area, what their coverages are, what their costs are. It's a great place to get some reinforcement on that. In addition to that, I'm sharing this irs.gov website, where if you have questions about taxation and you do that on your own, there's tons of resources there. The Plan Sponsor Council of America website as well talks about plans, has a lot of information about retirement plans in general for you. Again, on the Empower website, there is another tool that we've not yet talked about called My Financial Path. This one is really cool in that when you answer the questions out there, it can help you determine what's the best use of your next $1. Should you save it for retirement? Should you build an emergency fund? Should you use that dollar to pay down debt? What debt should you pay down if you have multiple debts? What types of debts? This is an overall financial wellness tool that's available to you through the website. I would encourage you to spend some time on that. If you have questions, you can take advantage of personalized help by calling Empower. That's information as well. Again, the Empower website, the Empower customer service line, these are disclosures I'm required to share with you. This one has my cell phone and my email on it. If you have questions for me specific that are particular to your account, reach out to me. We'll schedule a time to talk, whether it be when I'm there in your county or if I'm not going to be in your county soon over the phone. And I'll certainly be glad to help you at any point. Connie, that finishes my presentation this morning. Were there any other questions that came in?
I am not seeing any additional questions. If we want to just give it a minute, if anybody has questions about either the CERF pension or any of the information that Robert covered, please go ahead and enter those in the chat. And then, as Robert stated, once we close out the presentation today, there will be a link to his calendar as well and his information as well. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything, Robert.
Connie, I just had one pop up for me, and that was if there's going to be a recording of the webinar available. And the answer to that is yes. It's going to take a day or two before this is done, but on the mocerf.org website, so that's the main CERF website, their homepage, there will be a recording of the webinar that'll be placed out there where you can watch it anytime, or if you had a friend that this would benefit them to listen to and maybe they weren't able to attend today, they would be able to click on the links there and watch it at their own whatever time works for them.
All right. Let's see. Can you go back to slides to the .gov page?
Okay, I believe this is the one that they're referencing.
Yep, I think so. All right, so we'll leave that up for just a minute before we wrap up. But those are fantastic resources. Okay, then we got it.